Ethan, this is the start of our season number 2. We had a great season last year. We got season number 2. We've got a big news, I guess you might call it. I've gone back to night school.
Oh, really? So
Yeah,
can you sh could you share me about that? I'm really curious.
it's really interesting being on the other side of the desk. The tutor's really good. He's really passionate. It's a certificate of garden design. So it's level 2, so it's not really high. It's not going to require too much from me. But it's interesting being on the other side and having to learn again. I'm taking notes. I'm trying to do well. I forgot to do all my homework last week, so I felt bad to
Oh,
this week when we went there and I hadn't done my homework. But it's a very interesting course. It's partly practical, partly classroom. And
hmm
he has a great way of making it very practical learning. He's very good at this kind of thing.
right.
But it's interesting being on the other side because now I'm watching the tutor and thinking, I should have used that trick. I should have used that technique because there's a lot of techniques that he's using, the repetition, the humor, that kind of thing. So yeah, it is fun to be on the other side of that. But tonight we started doing manual drafting, which I think leads us on to a topic maybe next week we should cover it, which is why start with 2D first.
Mhm.
But first of all, I wanted to get your ideas for this season number 2.
Yeah,
We've spoken to a lot of architects so far, a lot of architectural technology. I wonder whether we could talk to some builders and get their point
sure.
of view of architectural technologists. You've got some contacts in that area.
I'll be start inviting some of the people because I'm quite active in professional areas during summer. So I just finished my CPT talk at WIT in front of NZIOB and NZIQS. So because of that, I got a few contacts from there, and I'll be contacting for our pod. We will have a different perspective about that. Should be this season will be better than last season. I think so. Yeah.
What do you mean you think so? Of course it's going to be better than last season. Now,
Right.
of course, the first thing that someone might think of is how does a QS relate to architectural technology? But if you look at their training, they have to learn to read drawings. In
Yeah.
fact, they have, what is it, 8 core courses or 6 core courses, which are exactly the same for QS and for a architectural technology. The ability to understand the building code, the ability to understand a drawing, the ability to understand services and
Yeah.
framing and details and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of similarity I see between AT or architectural technology and the quantity surveyors and the
Yeah.
construction management people.
Yeah. Yes. But it's a really good. It's going to be very interesting of when they go to the industry and how they pick up and how they look back, their colleagues, their friends. That will be quite a very interesting topic. So I'll be inviting them. Okay, let's go back to the topic, your class. Are you happy? I'm going to talk to you very frankly. Are you happy about that?
I am happy about that. Remember, I've got a lot of landscape clients
Yes.
and learning about plants and learning about landscaping and learning about
Mhm,
design of garden design, it
mhm,
is going to help me a lot with my clients. So the
mhm,
ability to relate to the clients.
mhm,
I've picked up a
mhm.
lot of knowledge over the years just because I've been teaching landscapers anyway. But it's something that there's a lot of similarities when you start thinking about garden design. A lot of landscapers, it's more than just the design of a few plants. We got elevation changes. In a lot of cases, we're trying to create a room for people to live in. We've got a brief, we have to comply with a brief. The difference is that sometimes landscapers are using hard materials, wood, walls, and don't forget that there's a real rise in landscape for outdoor kitchens as an extension of the house. So there's a design connection between the inside and the outside. There's all the construction of the outside room. And remember, those buildings, those constructions, particularly in New Zealand, have to comply with the building code. So you
Yeah.
still have to know a lot of the building code in order to do it. Safety from falling and the strength of the timber and how much wind uplift do we need on the columns, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that's still very relative to architectural technology. And I think there's a real ability for our students, particularly our architectural technology students, to actually go and work in a landscape environment where they do a lot of the documentation and a lot of the design of beams and posts, and if it's an outdoor kitchen, designing the joinery. And one of my clients is in Virginia, in America. And I was surprised when she started talking about the outdoor kitchen, because I thought it would be snowy and cold in the
Yeah,
winter.
that's quite interesting. Yeah, they are
But
they have extreme weather.
they also have very warm summers, and they spend
Yeah,
a lot of time in the
yeah,
summer outside. So they want the outdoor kitchen, but because of the winter situation, it is more like an outdoor room, which means that you've still got waterproofing to worry about, you've still got roof loading to worry about, you've still got structure to worry about. So there is a lot of crossover, I think, in what we teach our students into that area. I guess the other big news, Ethan, is that I'm no longer teaching architectural technology students at EIT.
yeah. I'm aware of that now. The listeners knows.
None of the listeners probably know that at this stage. I really enjoyed it. I learned lots from my time there. I think I just reached the end, and I want to go on and do other things at the moment. The
Yeah,
big thing I'm doing at the moment is I'm going back to teaching Vectorworks. So I've
I
got a
think
range of clients
yeah,
that I'm helping.
you definitely enjoyed teaching Vectorworks. So that's your favorite software.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
it really is. Hopefully it won't come up too much, Ethan. We'll stick on topic for what we cover. So there's a couple of people I'd like to interview. I'd really like to start interviewing some more overseas designers to talk about the differences between construction. There's a guy I know in New York, in Staten Island he is actually. He was talking a few years ago about the rise of external insulation, the requirement to use external insulation as well as insulating the wall, providing external insulation. I think there's a company here where we are called Outsolation. I'm not sure if it's still going, but I can see that as being something, because don't forget that when we put 140 studs, or 6x2s, if you like, when we put those studs and we put the insulation in, we've still got the cold bridge or the thermal bridge of the stud between the insulation. Whereas if you put exterior insulation on the outside of that, you're helping to minimize the cold bridging or the thermal bridging.
Yeah,
And I think Seattle, I've got clients in Seattle, they're talking about, again, having to have external insulation outside the building. The walls are getting really thick. So they might be using 4x2s or studs, but then putting 2 inches or 50 millimeters of polystyrene on the outside of the building. But that gives rise to a whole lot of detailing issues. How do we detail the windows? Does the window go in the polystyrene? Does it go in the stud wall? Where does that interface come? So it'd be interesting to talk to some of them, I think, and to see, because it's just my feeling. I've got no way of knowing this for sure, but I got a feeling that some of those colder clients where you and I are going to be teaching in the future in our local colleges. At the moment, we've got our insulation code has increased dramatically in the roof. I saw a new wool product the other day, 240 millimeters of wool insulation and it achieves 6.4 insulation. The next stage, I think, is going to be the walls. Once you super insulate the roof, the walls have got to be next.
yeah.
And I see that the exterior insulation is going to be the next requirement that we've got.
It's quite interesting. Building code is changing, especially for installations area. I think that yeah, there was our minister just announced a few months ago, and she will. I think he will change the installations code, updating the installation code again. Yeah, I don't know what will happen. But let's wait and see.
Here, I hear people say that changing the insulation is going to make warm, dry buildings. And it just annoys me when they say that, because just because it's warm doesn't mean it's going to be dry. We
Yeah,
still
yeah,
breathe, we still have water vapor. And the problem is that when we make our houses warm, the air now has more water vapor in it than it did before, not less. And so the chances are we'll get more mold, not less. And we can't do these things independently. But back to my going to night school, it's
yeah.
interesting because it is at night. I do notice a real difference that the night school people are there because they really want to be there. It's 5:30 in the evening. We have to go to trouble to go there, and it's 5:30 till 8:30 in the evening. So it does take a lot of effort, and you've got to really want to do it. You can't just think, oh, this might be nice. You've got to have a really determined outlook on doing it. My
Yeah,
determined outlook is that my wife wanted to do the course, and I said I'd do it with her. But yeah,
that's
I've
good.
got a couple of reasons why I wanted to do it. Ethan, I'm not sure if this should be in the podcast, but I went away for a long holiday in
Yeah.
September and October.
Mhm.
And when I came back, I decided I'm going to do the things that I love doing, which is one of
That's
the
really
reasons
good.
why I've gone back to teaching Vectorwork.
Yeah, it's really good. That's how it should be. And everybody's looking for a purpose and enjoyment. Yeah, and also you are contributing to the world. I think that's really good. Before this podcast, I was watching your YouTube videos about vectors walks, and you're talking about how to do lists. You want to separate the list.
Hmm.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. You know, you have to show him two ways how to do that. It's really good. Yeah.
I noticed you commented on my YouTube about I made a movie about how you can grab information from the window and make it turn up as a label. And you were surprised at how much information you can grab. Vectorworks makes it very easy to report information.
Yeah.
And one of our topics that we're going to cover this year has got to be BIM. But I think what we have to focus on in terms of BIM is the I, the information, because
Mhm.
some programs make it very easy to put information onto objects and report them, and some don't. I think that would be a great topic for us to cover, not just the BIM as in building the 3D model, but the
Yeah.
BIM as in the information, because in the old days when we didn't have such sophisticated CAD programs. If we did a door schedule for an apartment
Yeah.
building, we would be handwriting in a giant page. This is the number of the door, and this is the size of the door, and this is the details for the door, and this is the door handle, and this is the lock system, and we would write that across the page. Now, and normally in those days, we'd write it on ink on tracing paper.
All times.
If anything changes, it's out with the razor blade and scratch out the bits that you got wrong. And
and and you need to track down all the drawings for the same thing.
these days we can report it. So I think that would be another great topic for us to talk about is the rise of the rise of information in terms of building information modeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so much easier to do it properly. But I think before we get started with the I part of it, we should have and then next week we need to look at something that's come up so many times with me and my clients. Let me get the 2D under my belt first, and then I'll look at the 3D. And I've heard people say that so much. And we have to start in 3D. But anyway, let's talk about that next week.
Yeah. All right. So
Now,
it's
I think it's going to
yeah.
be an exciting year, Ethan. We've got a lot of topics that we're going to cover. We're going to have a lot of fun,
Yeah.
I think. But if people are out there and they think that they would like to talk to us and be included on the podcast, please drop me an email, drop me a DM if you can, and let us know that you're keen to talk. We are interested to hear from other people. We don't want this podcast to be all about Jonathan and Ethan telling us what they think.
Yeah. At least
It's
if
got
you
to
don't
be
come, we will talk.
you
Let's
don't
talk.
come exactly.
If you don't
And
come, we
for the
will keep
people,
on talking.
the other thing that sometimes happens, Ethan, is I say to people, I should interview for my podcast, and they say, "Oh, I've got nothing to say." But
Mhm.
actually, once you get them talking, they really do have a lot to say. And
Yeah.
so, thanks very much, Ethan. It's going to be a great year this year. I'm really looking forward to it. It should be really exciting with the podcast.
Yeah.
And thank you for all your support as well.
Nice to see you again, and see you next week. And
All right,
don't forget
Ethan,
to subscribe.
go to Spotify, subscribe on Spotify.
Yeah. Okay. See you next week. Bye.